All right, so in this video, we're going to be going over sample question 12 from the Society of Actuaries, ExamP, list of sample questions. The question reads, a doctor is studying the relationship between the blood pressure and heartbeat abnormalities in her patients. She tests a random sample of her patients and notes their blood pressure, high, low, normal, and their heartbeats, regular or irregular. And she finds the following pieces of information. 14% have high blood pressure, 22% have low, 15% have an irregular heartbeat. Of those with an irregular heartbeat, 1/3 of them have high blood pressure. Lastly, of those with a normal blood pressure, 1/8 have an irregular heartbeat. We want to calculate the portion of patients selected who have a regular heartbeat and low blood pressure. All right. Now this is super easy problem, general probability type stuff. So let's first write out kind of what we're given, make sense of this information. We're told 5 things, right? We have the fact that 14% of people have high blood pressure. So I'm going to mark H as high blood pressure. So the probability of having high blood pressure equals 0.14. The probability of having low blood pressure is equal to 0.22. And from that, I can now figure out the probability of having a normal blood pressure, right? Because the only options are you either have high, low, or normal. And if you have high blood pressure, you can't also have normal blood pressure. Those two groups are mutually exclusive, meaning that the rest of the sample should have normal blood pressure. And since all of those probabilities should equal to 1, I can do 1 minus 0.14 minus 0.22. And that gets me 0.64, or 64% of the sample have normal blood pressure. And similarly, we're told the probability of having an irregular heartbeat, which I'll make I, and that is 0.15. And if you don't have an irregular heartbeat, you must have a regular heartbeat, which would mean that 85% or 0.85 of her sample have a regular heartbeat. And I got all this information just from these 3 lines. And that's something you're going to need to be quickly able to do. Next, we're told of those with an irregular heartbeat, right? So we're just taking those with an irregular heartbeat. 1/3 of them have high blood pressure. Okay, so the probability of having high blood pressure, given that we know you have an irregular heartbeat, that's equal to 1/3. And I'll just write that as a fraction, so to avoid having a repeating decimal. And then lastly, of those with normal blood pressure, 1/8 of them have a regular heartbeat. So that is another conditional probability. So the probability of having an irregular heartbeat, given you have normal blood pressure, is 1/8. Okay, so what do we want to do in this situation? Right, we listed all our values so we can use them later. I think the easiest thing is to just make a chart. And given that there's no overlap in these categories, I can make it like a box kind of chart like this with columns and rows. All right, so on the side, I'll have either you have a regular heartbeat or an irregular heartbeat, and 3 columns. You either have high blood pressure, normal blood pressure, that is the backwards end, and you have high, normal, or low blood pressure. And we can start filling in the information based off what we have. Those with a high blood pressure, that's 0.14. That should be this entire column. So I'm going to write 0.14 down here, and the same logic, I'm going to fill in kind of the rest of what I have here. Those with the low blood pressure, that's 0.22, 0.64 for those with the normal blood pressure, 0.15 for those with an irregular heartbeat, and 0.85 for those with a regular heartbeat. And then we have these two pieces of information here, okay? Those don't necessarily go in our chart because what these are the intersection of the row and the column, while these are conditional probabilities. So let's first see what the question's asking us before we go on any further. We need to calculate the portion of the patients selected who have an irregular heartbeat and low blood pressure, right? So we need to find the following. I don't know why this keeps coming off. There we go. The probability that you have an irregular heartbeat, a regular heartbeat and low blood pressure. So we're looking for this value right here. Now, how do we go about figuring that out? We need to fill in the information that we have based off of these two conditional probabilities. So we're given a relationship between high blood pressure given that somebody has an irregular heartbeat. How can we then get the intersection? Well, you should be very familiar with the formula for conditional probability, right? So the probability of having high blood pressure given you have an irregular heartbeat is equal to the probability that you have high blood pressure and an irregular heartbeat, which is what we're trying to find, divided by the probability of having an irregular heartbeat. Okay? And these two are values we have, right? This is 1/3, while this is 0.15. And we multiply to both sides, multiply by 0.15 to both sides. At that point, it's just algebra. And we get the probability of having a high blood pressure and an irregular heartbeat is, let me just check, 1/3 times 0.15 is 0.05, right? Just to do that out, so 1/3 equals probability of H and I over 0.15. Multiply 0.15 to both sides. 0.05 is equal to probability of H intersection I. Okay, so that means here we have 0.05. And since this whole column should add up to 14% or 0.14, I can figure out that this box should be 0.09. All right. If you've been going through the sample questions in sequential order, the beginning questions are very easy. You're going to see much harder ones on the actual exam. But this concept has come up a lot, and that's for good reason. All right. Be very used to kind of making this table. It organizes information so easily. All right. So what else? Because we can't really get the rest of this yet. What we did here, we're going to do the same thing with this piece of information. So down here, I'll just write, okay, the probability of I given n is equal to the probability of I and n, which would be this box right there, divided by the probability of n. Now, the probability of I given n, that is 1/8. The probability of n is 0.64, so probability of I and n over 0.64. I multiply to both sides, and I get 1/8 times 0.64. And that's equal to 0.08. And that's the probability of I and n, the intersection. And I fill that in. I and n is 0.08. And now I can actually fill in the rest. I can, since this whole column should add up to 0.64, I can simply subtract the 0.08, and this should be 0.56. Now this is what we're looking for. We could also find this, it's not necessary, but this whole row should add up to 0.85. So just simple subtraction of 0.85 minus 0.56 minus 0.09 is equal to 0.2, which is what our question is asking us to find. So our final answer is 0.2, which lines up with answer choice E. Okay. Normally, the problem would not take this long. Honestly, this problem can be done in less than a minute. I'm kind of going really in depth just to illustrate the techniques used in solving a situation like this. So what's the main takeaways? What did you need to know walking into this problem? Really, not much. You need to know that the entire sample space adds up to 1. That is honestly something you need to know walking into any probability question. You need to know just the formula for conditional probability and how that works, right? And not only just the formula, but the language of how you would say conditional probability in words, right? Of those with normal blood pressure, 1/8 have an irregular heartbeat. Okay? And aside from that, being able to make a table like this, right? Knowing that I can make this table rather than a set of Venn diagrams, right? Rather than some other type of chart. Right? Hopefully that was a pretty in-depth kind of lesson. If this question gave you any trouble, or if you still have any questions regarding this example, leave a question down in the comments. I'll answer to the best of my abilities. If you want to check out more questions, more examples, I have a playlist. I'm adding more to that, as I speak. If this video helped you, definitely hit the like button, because that for sure helps me. But other than that, good luck, guys.